Hey NAI football fans, Corey Thorpe here with another edition of the NAIF Ball Podcast, powered by AdCraft USA, your custom apparel, merch, and uniform experts. Our friends at AdCraft have been with us for many years now. They've run web stores for us multiple times. These guys are NAI fans and family who are experts in the apparel and merchandise world. AdCraft allows you to take the hassle out of ordering. Let their knowledgeable design and customer service staff handle everything from hosting the store online, shipping the product, and helping your customers so you can get back to the game. Find them online at adcraftusa.com. All right, NAI football fans, Corey Thorpe here, back with another edition of the NAIF Ball Podcast, powered by AdCraft Custom Apparel and Merch. You heard him in the intro. We've got 11 teams tonight, and so we're going to try to keep this one, like the Frontier, under an hour. So, let's get with the getting. Matt, this is some home cooking for you here.
Yeah, some home cooking. It does feel a bit weirder now that I'm working for one of these schools, so I will keep it as unbiased as I possibly can with a smile on my face.
Unlike last week when talking about Dakota State.
I actually did a good job. I behaved myself.
Fair enough. Well, first up is going to be a former North Star team, and that's going to be the Waldorf Warriors, who Matt had boy, they had a rough time of it last year.
Yeah, not an ideal start transitioning to the GPAC that you would have liked that to have gone better for you. But, you are returning a good chunk of guys at least from that team. You can maybe weather the storm a bit. Obviously, not much else, nowhere else to go but up. I mean, you go 0-11, 0-10 in conference, like quite literally nowhere else to go but up. So it's good that you're bringing those guys back. Coach Chappa, obviously in his third season, doing the best he can, and I think that they're going to be on the path to being more competitive next year.
I mean, like you said, you don't have anywhere else to go. Down 33 spots on offense, down 31 on defense. Very much a wake-up call there for Waldorf. But like you said, returning almost all the offense. Lewis Williams, Rocky Ketchum, Caden Abele, going to be your big three there. And you're returning literally everyone on defense. All of everybody. And, that's a good place to be in because Briar Cliff wasn't that great last year either. They were down 4 spots overall and down 15 spots SP plus wise on a defense that has generally been their calling card.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's not where they wanted to be, but I think they're primed for being kind of in the middle and nipping at those top teams again. I feel like they're a very up and down team. It seems like every other year is kind of when they hit. So if that's the cycle, then they're going to be pretty good next year. Definitely a team that will be able to flip the script, I think. They're always super competitive when they return a lot of guys, and they return a lot of guys. Definitely good signs for the program that you have that happening. And I don't know, man, like you have some key pieces leaving, but you might have some guys be able to step up into those roles.
Yeah, you're talking about a team that was 85th SP plus, 77th in Massey, 77th offense and SP plus 86th defense. Stephen Whiting is a good look. We see all kinds of tight ends get um, honors, get all conference honors. We've seen a tight end so far this season have like 3 receiving yards and get first team or get all conference honors. Means he blocks his butt off, but you've got a first team tight end. That's pretty good for a team that went 2-9, and it's not a bad set of stats. 366 yards from a tight end is strangely going to be about upper half in the nation for tight ends. And Matt, like you said, you've got a high majority of your offense and defense coming back. You return a majority of your quarterbacks. There's nowhere that you are going to be in a minority of your guys returning. Even your worst position group coming back is your linebacker position, and you return half of them. Which, I mean, teams run a ton of linebackers, so you're talking about you might have three returning that had playing significant playing time, and three that you're losing. So you're talking about a team that could be primed to make a jump there. And well, a team that made a jump a couple of years ago and then kind of fell back to the field, Matt. It's going to be the Hastings Broncos, the not birthplace, but the OG coaching stomping grounds and playing grounds of Tom Osborne of Nebraska fame. It was a down year. We predicted this off of 23, where they had a decent season. We kind of thought they would regress to the mean. Matt Franzen's entering his fourth season, just really getting his guys in there. 81st overall in SP plus 70th in Massey. You'll notice that the Massey is going to rank the GPAC guys a little bit higher by about 10 spots, pretty consistently than SP plus did. But I'll note here that you were down 17 overall. You were up 8 spots on offense.
Yeah, definitely not a bad spot for them to be in. I think with the guys you have returning too, a lot of that defense and a lot of that offense comes back. Jaden Roberts being your main guy on the defense that is returning for you is huge. I'm really curious to see how this team looks. I'll touch on it a little bit later. Hint. But I think this team, like, they return enough guys. This is a team that's finding its groove. Obviously, had a down year last year, but you're kind of rallying the troops this year, saying, "Hey, like, this is our time. This is the time that we've, bought into. It's the fourth season of your new head coach. Like, this is when those gears can turn." And those guys that have been in the program the entire time, they're there. They're ready to go. So I'm really curious to see how this Hastings team does. When they tend to be in this spot where they return a lot of guys, they usually do very well and kind of knock at the door. I mean, it wasn't too long ago we were talking about this team in the top 25 of media polls, like just a couple of years ago. So it's not ridiculous, I think, to expect this team to make a jump compared to last year.
Yeah, and you can't leave without talking about Trevon Shaw, almost a 40-yard average as a punter in the NAI. That's going to be your 40-yard is kind of where your elite punters are in this league. A 65 long, definitely. That's pretty good. You return most of everything on both sides of the football. I think you're right, Matt. You could see a situation where Hastings kind of jumps kind of into the 50s range, and we'll have to see what they can do with that a little bit there. First of the two D squads, well, 3 D squads actually, but first of the 5 letters, that's going to be the Doane Tigers, 3-8, 3-7, 79th overall, 62nd in Massey, 88th offense, 59th defense. Jonathan Johnson entering his second season. You usually see a lot of growth out of your second season. Have to see what the Tigers have last year. Kind of held serve in their first year under Johnson, which is generally a good sign.
Yeah, absolutely. I think to that defense, Stone's always had a very, very good defense that they hang their hat on. I think it's the same case. You bring back a lot of those guys. And you have guys like Jared Boggs contributing to what is a top 55 SP plus team on defense from last year. And like, you're in a great position. Now the offense is going to be a bit interesting to see what they do there. There's a lot of shakeups on that side of the ball for them. But you were 88th last year, kind of bottom of the barrel in that category. Like, maybe you can shake things up. Maybe you can plug new guys in there. We'll have to see.
Yeah, and we talked about the punter there from Hastings. I would again be remiss if I didn't mention Kellen Meyer, 44.3 average, which is darn elite in this league. 8 of 15 on field goal attempts. You do bring your quarterback back in Sam Hartman, but you've got a lot of holes there with your wide receivers, and we'll have to see because it's hard on that one. Now we go from this, and it's a pretty hefty step up from here from Doane to the Dakota Wesleyan Tigers, coming in at 62nd, 55th in Massey, 45th defense, 69th offense, which is very nice, Matt. And again, you've got another second-year head coach in Alex Kretschmar.
Yeah, feels weird talking about this team right now, but it's all good because honestly, I'm really excited to watch this team with my own two eyes for the entire season. I think their defense is going to be very, very, very good next year. You bring back a lot of guys, Joe Van Overshield, the linebacker position, Cody Winslow, Landon Rusink in the DB room, all guys who have been in the program. This entire senior class was freshmen when I was a senior, so I've played with some of these guys. And to be able to speak to their character, their work ethic, like I think they're in a very good position, especially defensively. Now, I think offensively, there are going to be some interesting spots to fill. Obviously, you kind of have to rework your quarterback room and how that looks, but you bring back Kobe Kaiser, you bring back Holden, a lot of guys that are main contributors for this team. You do return, which is a very, very good spot to be in. Unfortunately, you do lose John Pika to South Dakota State University. Unfortunate, but jumping to D1 is always pretty cool. So power to him. But yeah, that's my opinion on my team. And I don't speak on behalf of my employer when I say any of that.
That's probably a good note now that you are actually employed by your team. Matt's going to be doing his best throughout the season to stay even keeled about Dakota Wesleyan. He's not going to shove him in at 25th too early. He might shove him in at some point, always does. But that's something. I mean, we all have biases, and so we all have to deal with these biases. And this is why when we do our poll, we have quite a few voters, is to help filter out some of those biases. But Matt, last time that Dakota Wesleyan had a all-conference running back, the season went pretty good for you.
Yeah, definitely a good spot to be in, I'd say.
And then we go from there, and we go just up the road to the prettiest helmets in all of NAI football, making Matt's eyes twitch a little bit, because better than Dakota Wesleyan last year was Mount Marty. And the Golden Dome of Mount Marty, I dare say, better than Notre Dame's Golden Dome. John Micheletti entering his 5th season, the Kansas Wesleyan guy. We've got a ton of respect for Coach Mick over there, doing a fantastic job. This is kind of the put up or shut up season here for Mount Marty. You had an over 500 season last year. You were 6-5. You're entering your 5th season. You've had your first class of seniors. Now what do you do? Because do you regress, or do you build on the foundation that first class put down and build a foundation of your own as a second class?
Yeah, like you mentioned, with foundation and all of that, 5th, 6th years when you kind of get to see, is that actually, is there structure to that? Is there substance to it? And I think Coach would definitely say so, because Mount Marty has been on a pretty upward trend since they've kicked things off. not too long ago. So yeah, I think Mount Marty, like, they're definitely going to be in it. This is definitely a team that always fights hard, always gives it a good go. So and obviously I was not too happy with the Wesleyan game last year, how that went. Um, but hey, you get a win over Dakota Wesleyan. I gotta tip my cap to that. So
And you do have a few people leaving, including the long snapper. Oh, it's got to give love to the long snapper. You got a
yep.
second team all conference offensive lineman in Lionel Whittingham coming back. You're losing a guy in Josh Pickthorne who had 12 and a half tackles for loss last year, and 3 pass breakups from the linebacker position. And basically, on offense, all you've got to do is find some guys to throw to because you've got the same quarterback in Rugby Riken. You've got Malachi Hartz at running back. You return basically everyone there. Find some guys to throw to, and this could be super fun. But defensively is um, you're losing quite a few on defense, and 44th is a nice place to be defensively, especially when you're around 500. It's a good thing to build on, but you lose a lot of players from that, and so I don't know how they're gonna do it, and it'll be a testament to their recruiting, how they will go from here on that. But honestly, you might start seeing Yankton, South Dakota joining the ranks of the mentionables in the GPAC sometime soon. And with that, we'll be back with a message from our friends at AdCraft.
So you want to create and sell custom merch for your team or business. That's exciting, but where do you begin? How much inventory should you order? How do you distribute orders? AdCraft has your answers. Streamline the way you offer custom merch by utilizing our risk-free web store service. We ship directly to each customer, and we have the fastest turnaround in the game. Raise funds for your team or get merch to your employees and patrons. Contact AdCraft today, and let's bring your merch to life.
That is exactly what they do. They're so good at it. They've sponsored us for so many years now. It is so fantastic to continue to have them supporting us. They are NAI born and bred. I say it at least once a month. They're legitimately good dudes, and just really look at them for outfitting your team, or just doing a web store and getting product to your fans around the country. So we continue on with the top half of the GPAC, and that starts with Midland. 6-5, 5-5. You're up 2 overall from your 45th last year in SP Plus. Massey pretty much disagrees, but again, we've got a team that's overperforming defensively from their offensive standpoint.
Yeah, I think Midland is in a really good position this upcoming season. I think too, with some of the teams that we will talk about coming up, there's a chance for Midland to take advantage of all the guys they bring back. I do think it is interesting to note you have a quarterback that you will need to figure out who's going to be playing that position, because you don't return Ivy from last season. Or sorry, you do return Ivy, but had no attempts on the season last year. So will be interesting to see who plugs in there. Maybe it's Ivy, maybe it's not. But you do return, guys like Tim Brown, guys like Brandon Lance, playmakers on both sides of the ball. Also can't go without mentioning Tyson Denkert, who is kind of your do-it-all guy. Being able to return a weapon like that is huge. And I think Midland is going to be in a really good position we were picking between contenders and maybe dark horses for the end of the episode. I considered Midland kind of towards that contender tier because I just think they bring back so much. If you can figure out the quarterback position, the pieces are in place for you.
Okay, so this is going to be a deep cut and might be a little older than you, the reference, but Tim Brown is a phenomenal name for a wide receiver. It's like there was a guy named Tim Brown that was one of the all-time great wide receivers or something. Yeah, you have no idea, do you? And all of the old heads are now screaming at you. Okay, we're going to time out this program, and we are going to school Matt. It's fine. Let's see here. Tim Brown football. Tim Brown went to Notre Dame. Never thought I'd mention them twice in one podcast. Career 14.
That's unfortunate.
Yeah, I know it really is. 14,934 yards and 100 touchdowns in 255 games, mostly with the Raiders, except for 1 year in Tampa Bay. Where he was terrible.
I've watched enough NFL films. I recognize him in the Raiders uniform for sure.
Yep. And had that one unfortunate year in Tampa Bay where he was aged. Tim Brown's a really good name for a wide receiver.
Agree.
Yeah, it's almost like being named Jerry Rice or something. So you feel good about that if you can step into that name a little bit. You do also return a majority of your defense with Bert Adama, Jay Ballard, Brandon Lance, kind of leading you at each level of your defense. Midland's always kind of a scary team. And it will be interesting to see what's going to happen here. You really could step up because, looking back at last year, there was one team that stepped up, and boy, did they step up hard. That's going to be the Concordia Bulldogs. Came out of absolutely nowhere. I was looking, and I'll look again to remind myself. Concordia was both of our dark horses last season. So I am proud to report that we were 100% correct.
Yeah, last year was definitely their put up or shut up year, and they put up. They were fantastic. Pretty much a top 25 team like most of the year. Really good things from last year. Now, the problem on the flip side of that is now you kind of cycle through all those guys from those past couple seasons. Now you got a lot of holes to fill for our viewers on video. That is a lot of names in the all GPAC leaving list.
And the quality of name there, too. You've got an all-time Concordia quarterback in DJ McGarvey, an all-time Concordia wide receiver in Austin Jablonski, and, a 1,200-yard running back in Mark Arp that are all leaving. Yes, you do return Adam Van Cleve at wide receiver. But now I will say, I talked with Coach Dabercow when we were putting this together, and he said that the spring for the offensive lineman, because obviously you see the two all first-teamers there in Blake Schlegel and Tyler Walford. He said that the spring really put some of his fears to rest on that offensive line. So that's something that's really good to hear. Because if you can have a good offensive line, you can atone for a meh running back. And when you return few of your people on offense, your quarterback has been in your system for 3 years in Gideon Stark, but he barely threw any passes last year. Carlos Colazo, Adam Van Cleve are both in the minority of people coming back at running back and wide receiver, respectively. You're going to need that offensive line to open up those holes for Colazo so that you can take some of the pressure off of Stark. It's not fun being a first year starter there. And Matt, that's a lot of defensive. That's a couple of defensive players, especially on the D line.
Yeah, this is definitely one of the few teams in the conference that jumps out to you in any capacity for any reason. Unfortunately for Concordia, it's because there are so many guys leaving. But I think too, how confident are you in what you've had cooking in the pot for a few years? These backups that have been in your program, guys that you mentioned like Stark, who haven't really gotten that many reps, but have been around these guys that have found success. Some of that, there's something to be said for some of that rubbing off on you. There's also something to be said for seeing, the guys ahead of you, what they do right, what they do wrong, how they're coached. You get a kind of a different level of understanding once you're watching the guy in front of you, if you're really paying attention, of course. So there's some of that will be interesting to see. Obviously, Coach Staberkow does a great job, so I'm confident that this will still be a competitive team, but definitely one that jumps off to you on paper, at least, as one that could take a step back.
And, the biggest game there for Concordia, really the one where they put themselves on the map, was the game against our next team, Northwestern.
Yep.
And, ladies and gents, if you don't believe, for whatever reason, that quarterback is the most important position on the field, look at what happened to Northwestern after a late transfer by Jalen Gramstead.
Yeah, you really missed Jalen Gramstead last season.
Did you ever?
Did you ever? Because literally every other facet of this team was pretty much up to snuff with what we've usually seen. And I don't think that's anyone's fault. It's just more a product of the situation, and that's just unfortunate with how it goes.
Now,
But-
look, and I've said time and again, and I'll say it one last time. My guy grew up a Nebraska fan.
Yeah.
And Nebraska called.
Yeah.
And said, "Come play for us." There is nothing about what he did last year that rubs me the wrong way at all. That is
not at all.
I make that move 101 times out of 100. I mean, that is the right move for that kid. Now, did he get a lot of playing time? Absolutely not. But dadgummit, you get to suit up for freaking Nebraska, the team that you grew up rooting for. Yeah, there is no way that I would not have made the same decision whatsoever. But man, Matt, that defense was so good last year.
Yeah. I feel like that's been a trend for them. I mean, it used to be their offense that stood out, and then their defense just straight up matched it over the past few seasons. They are still cooking. I think you have enough guys coming back on the offense to be productive once you can figure out the quarterback situation and who feels comfortable in that position. You have a spring to figure that out. But you bring back a lot of talent from that team that will serve you well going into next season.
Yeah, I mean, Austin Gerard is going to be a huge one there, 872 yards. You've got Tristan Voss and Dragstra on the defensive line. That's incredible. Those two are both excellent players. But man, you're losing Parker Fryer, who you're losing him for the second time. After he came back from South Dakota State, I think. That's the one with the paw, right?
No, that's UST.
Okay, I live in Florida, people.
The Yotes.
All right, South Dakota. I live in Florida, people. FCS football is not really a thing down here.
Shame on you.
I know. Connor McQuillan, you lose. Tristan Mulder, you lose. Corver Dimma is a late transfer out to Central Michigan, which is a really interesting move because that's an NAI head coach up there.
Mm-hmm.
Former Kansas Wesleyan head coach, Coach Drinkle up there. And so, again, it's one of these, you get the opportunity to go play for a D1 squad, an FBS squad at that, even if it's group of 5. He's going to give himself a little action, and I don't blame him. I mean,
No.
that's huge.
I mean, if anything, it's a testament to how you develop guys within your own program, right?
100%.
Like,
yeah, no, in 2 consecutive years, you've had players picked off by D1 programs. That's the best problem to have that you could possibly have. The D1 teams are coming calling for your players. This is the NAIA. And so even so, you return a majority of your offense. Now, granted, most of it's going to be at your wide receiver position and at your quarterback. Hayden Gross, Colby Duncan, did they get a baptism of fire last year. And I think they're going to be better for it this year. Obviously, in my opinion, you're going to want one guy. Ask Steve Ryan how it goes having 2 quarterbacks and how well that works for you. I do think they're going to have to find a guy. But Matt, it seems like every year this team has half of their defense returning, and somehow they're still in the top 6 defensively every year. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, Northwestern definitely not a team that you can ever count out until they actually lose, and I see it with my own 2 eyes. Definitely was the case when Concordia beat them not that long ago. So yeah, I'm sure this will be a team we will talk about towards the end of next year's episode as well.
So we talked about Concordia losing a lot of players. I don't know that it's going to compare, however, to Dordt. Dordt kind of ending a little bit of a cycle all at once. And it was a great year for Joel Penner and Dordt. A phenomenal year. 7th in SP, 10th in Massey, 5th overall defense, 21st ranked offense. You finally found a quarterback that you're comfortable with in Colson Cruz. And Matt, you know just as well as I do that Dordt's offense is predicated so much off of having a quarterback who understands that system intimately.
Absolutely. And just with how well they're coached, like it's not really a surprise that they were in the position they were in last year. But like you alluded to, this top 5 defense is losing a lot of guys, and you are losing some notable names too on the offensive side that you'll have to replace.
Yeah, Nick Wellen was a good running back, but you've got those in spades, honestly. But yeah, I mean, you're losing at least one all-conference guy at each level, sometimes 2. Ian McDonald, Tyler Waringa, Lucas Hatinga, and Dan Jungling, all really good. Now, that's going to be – so this is what Matt was alluding to earlier, where you're saying that there's a team here where they can drop back a bit. And we've seen this from Dordt before. Dordt is a cyclical team. Reminds me a lot of old school Wake Forest, where every 5th year they would have just a billion 5th-year seniors, and they would wreck the ACC. This team is very cyclical, kind of like that. This was their high point, and just like we talk about for several teams each year, how have you recruited to take advantage of that?
Yeah, it'll be curious to see who plugs in. I feel like every time we have this conversation, you see even the next season when you lose a lot of guys, they plug guys in where the gears are turning. They are already getting, cogs back in the system that can plug in. It will just take a year of, getting out there and actually doing it.
Yep.
So another team that will be competitive. I think the GPAC is going to be more of a headache than usual this year, because I feel like there are a lot of teams that are in that like pretty good to like really good tier.
Yeah, a lot of
And I
midfield.
yeah, it's it'll be interesting to see how they stack up, especially when you have the next team doing their thing.
Yeah, look, Dordt and Northwestern are very good in spurts, but last year was the reemergence of Morningside. I mean, my word, these guys, I want to say, trying to remember the stats. I'm pretty sure they had over 7,000 yards of total offense last season. That's borderline insane. 7.09 yards per play offensively. Second in Massey, fifth in SP plus, 12th and 13th on offense and defense by SP plus. Other than that loss to Benedictine, where they're still sort of trying to figure out who they are at the beginning of the season, I think they figured it out. And this might be the reemergence of the Morningside team that we saw late last decade, where they were absolutely head and shoulders elite, because you're headlining by bringing back Zach Chevalier, who threw for over 4,600 yards and was completing passes at a 2/3 clip. You have Max Huff, Drew Sellen, and Lennox Brown coming back. Huff almost had 1,200 yards rushing. Sellen had 1,800 yards receiving. Lennox Brown, the gadget player, Go Gadget Brown over here, 934 yards. This is a team who, as long as their defense is fine, because you do lose a couple of good pieces, this is a national championship contender. And Steve Ryan is probably going to send me a darn DM telling me not to puff up his players. Look, he is now the active leader in the NAIA in wins with Kevin Donnelly retiring. He is one of the all-time active leaders in wins across college football. My guy knows how to coach. He's been doing it for 24 years. They'll figure out the defense.
Yeah, Morningside is Morningside. That's the input I give most years, and that's the input I'm giving again. I know I said my piece about Montana Western being my national champion, and this would probably be the team they'll play
in the semis.
Like, yeah, again. Yeah, no kidding. But yeah, I think Morningside is in prime position. It feels like Morningside and everybody else, to be completely honest, probably not something I should be putting out in the air, but like that's what we're looking at here.
Yeah.
I mean, is it not?
Yeah, I mean, you're returning almost all of your offense and a majority of your defense. You do lose Isaac Pingle, Dijon Walls, Colton Jareeth. Pingle had 135 tackles last year at linebacker and 8 pass breakups. I mean, the guy was everywhere. But they grow middle linebackers down there or up there just like nothing. I mean, they'll be fine. They'll find another middle linebacker, another generational talent. Ho hum. This is a team to really look at, as if they can stay healthy. Obviously, you always have to put that caveat in there. As long as they can stay healthy, this is a team that we should be seeing at the end of the season at the national championship site. It would not shock me to see it be Montana Western on the other side. It also would not shock me if they put Montana Western against Morningside in the semifinals.
On the same side, yeah.
On the same side of the bracket. Would not surprise me. It's
more
happened
likely,
before.
honestly. Yeah.
I mean, Look, the year before they won that first national championship in 2018, they had to play St. Francis in the semifinals. That St. Francis team went on to win the national championship. It was a good game between them and St. Francis. The next year, they hosted St. Francis in the semifinals and beat them en route to that first national championship against Benedictine. I don't want to ride them too much. That's honestly why I'm wearing the Northwestern shirt tonight is to kind of make it less like I'm just riding them completely. But replace a couple DBs, replace a few linebackers, and you're talking about another championship run here. And honestly, I think that runs good into our picks here. Matt, I'm gonna pull this out where it doesn't say East on it, because that would be silly. Matt, who after we've talked them up, who do you have winning the GPAC?
Yeah, it's Morningside.
Yeah.
The facts are the facts. What I'm looking at is what I'm looking at. I will say, you don't play football on a spreadsheet.
Nope.
That's always the caveat, and it's true. And we've seen teams give very good Morningside teams some problems before.
Yeah.
But they pull out most of the time from when we've seen those.
Who?
But, I mean, yeah, we already said our piece.
Yeah. Who you got for your dark horse?
The wink, wink, nudge, nudge from earlier. Did you remember? It's Hastings. Really bullish on this team. I just think that fourth season with these guys coming around is a really good spot to be in with when you bring most of them back. And you could say that for a couple other teams. Like I said, Midland is probably too high on my list to be considered for this, but they're another one of those teams that you probably have to watch out for. And with Northwestern and Dordt and Concordia having some spots to fill, you could really see some of these mid teams cause some problems.
So it just now strikes me now that I'm looking at this. You picked an all-horse GPAC with the Mustangs and the Broncos.
It's true.
Are those the only two horse mascots?
Briar Cliff.
Oh yeah, they're the Chargers. I just never think of Chargers as a horse. They are, but I always think of that as a lightning bolt.
Yeah, but it is a horse.
It is a horse. You are correct.
It's a horse.
Of course.
I know these things, Corey.
Of course you do. Now, I mean, I'm no fool. I'm going with Morningside for the reasons that we've stated. However, my dark horse is a knight. So I believe...
We jousting? Is that what's going on?
We are jousting apparently this year in the GPAC. It is going to be jousty. The growth and the trajectory that Mount Marty has been on, I expect them to take that next step. They've got good coaching. If pretty helmets count for anything, they've got pretty helmets. This is a team that over the last few years has shown that they are here to compete. And I think you're going to see them cause a lot of problems. I think you will see them emerge around the spot where Midland is now. Kind of north of that middle of the pack in the entire NAI. I think in a couple of years you're actually going to have to worry about Mount Marty. In much the same way that we used to talk about Dordt making that next step, I see that for Mount Marty coming. So now we go to the numbers and Where does the GPAC slot in? Well, it's going to be right in the middle of the Frontier in the AAC. Closer to the Frontier than the AAC, honestly. Now, this is up, in a bad way, up. That average is up about 2 1/10 per team, which means that you've gotten about 2 spots worse per team on average. Standard deviation, it's a bigger conference. Again, we see, bigger conferences have a huge disadvantage here. The main problem here is you've got a team hanging out like Waldorf in the 90s and a team hanging out in like the top 3 with Morningside. And you've got this huge swath. And so that means that the GPAC is going to sit right here in the middle of the Frontier and the AAC, almost dead center. As we bring more teams in and start ranking more teams in here, Heart North, next week, you'll see this start to suss its way out, especially as we get to the Mid-South. Mid-South is the back-to-back reigning champs of this thing. I do not expect them to win a third. The conference had kind of a down year last year, and I do not expect them to have a third title. I will be kind of surprised, honestly, if they do. But I think that's pretty accurate in terms of conference where you are there between those 3 and kind of overall conference looks there. So, y'all, I think we can tease it, right, Matt? Let's tease a little bit. Big things going on behind the scenes at NAIF ball. A lot of discussions happening behind the scenes that, if they come to fruition, and I have no reason to believe that they will fall through, will allow us to do a lot more coverage on site. That will be sweet. I feel like I need to fire up a little Big and Rich, the OG, a little bit of the OG college game day. Well, come in to your city. But that is a possibility in the works of, of building a college game day idea for the NAIA. That's still kind of blue sky our goal for right now. But there is definitely a lot of stuff going on behind the scenes where you're going to get more coverage, and you're going to get more player interviews. You're going to get the coach interviews that we always do. You're going to get more coverage of NAI football because we're able to through some new partners. And I am super, super excited about the future of NAI football. So stay tuned. We'll announce everything as everything is finalized. But Matt and I are both super excited. Filled him in on what was going on today, and so it's fantastic.
Big things coming, man. It's a fun time to be a small college football fan.
It really is, and it's not just us. It's a rising tide is lifting all boats here. Now, the fun thing is that we're probably going to be the guinea pigs for a lot of this change, because we're the first sport up. Fall. So it's gonna be fun. Keep it posted. Yeah, keep your eyes peeled. It's gonna be fun. But no matter what happens, Matt, the guys doing the Lord's work in the background always gonna be our patrons. They are the backbone of what we do, making sure the lights stay on, the not sexy work here. And that's going to be DSU Cone, Bob Boone, Roger Meyer, Jeremy Vobble, Fred Christensen, Ace Wellen, Marty Seabolt, Nick Ryan, Kyle Gregory, Tyler Pierce, Justin Hoffman, Steve Speakman, Brian Shake, Julianne Shager, Nate Soapbeer, Stephen Cutler, Julie Lout, Nathan Moore, Ryan, Jason Crawford, Charles A. Flowers, Todd, Nick, Sean Chamberlain, Zach Lance, Josue Trujillo, Casey Willis, and Carol C. Suggs, Chris, Derek Lowers, Jason Garnon, USF Sucks, Ian Brookshire, Joey Breckle, Coke, and Nicholas Timbro, and MidwestSports.net. Now, I do have one further thing. I don't know if you actually saw this or not, Matt. We didn't make a huge deal about it when it happened. We will make a huge deal about it. But we have always been very grateful to those who take their time to listen, that take the time to follow. If it's not for y'all, then we're just talking to open air and none of this matters. We are so thankful for y'all. We crossed an absolutely enormous milestone this last week. We hit 50,000 Twitter/X followers.
Huge.
Dude,
It's huge.
I remember vividly being at the national championship game in 2018. So 7 years ago, and sitting in the box and being very excited about the fact that we had in the run of the playoffs gone from 1,500 to 3,000. And the fact that we are now at 50,000, I'm pretty sure that's the biggest of all the NAIA sports-specific media outlets.
Has to be, yeah.
And it's going to be fairly close. We've always, so the NAIA itself is at 75. We've always trailed the home office by about 25,000 followers. The fact that we're keeping up with the home office when we only cover one sport is insanity. Yeah, NAI balls at 43.4. Those guys are coming up on that number as well. Just looking to see. NAI Hoops Reports at 47. And the fact that we're doing this with 95 teams when both of those guys are over 100. Easily, I think almost 150 for basketball and baseball.
Mm-hmm.
And we're doing it, and we've got 50,000 for half the teams that are playing is such a testament. Not to us. We're just two talking heads talking football. And look, any schmuck with time could have stepped into what we stepped into. We stepped in at the right time. It's a testament to those who followed that have, it's a testament to our patrons for keeping things going for this amount of time. Thank you. It is not lost on me that I'm a guy with a full-time job that gets to do this on the side and has friends introduce him as, among a certain population of people, he is Kirk Herbstreit. That will never not be weird, but it's true, and it's not because of me. It's because of you. It's because of viewers like you that reach out and chat and talk and that follow and, sometimes make fun of our stupid decisions. We are so thankful. So, until next time, where we go straight to the heart, he's Matt Schwartzler. I'm Corey Thorpe, and we will see y'all next week.